So we're going to talk about finding the right tempo, right, as we
Yeah.
go into recording. Let's have a conversation about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think for us, really finding the tempo to whatever song we're recording or performing is really a collaborative effort. I think as a band, whoever is demoing the song initially will sort of just kind of feel out what feels best for that riff. And usually it's a guitar player in the band who's writing the riff initially. Yeah. So a lot of times you kind of have to focus on the feel and the tempo based on how fast that guitar player can play that riff, because certain times it's either really easy to kind of speed it up or slow it down based on feel, or sometimes it's really hard to speed it up or slow it down because of the way the movement is. So as a drummer, especially in a situation where you're going into a recording session that you've never really done before, like a session, like specifically session work, where you may just be hired, you've never heard the songs before, you go in, and maybe the person who's giving you the music hasn't even worked out what the tempo is. They just have something they maybe demoed on an acoustic guitar, or it's another kind of demoing. You really have to work to figure out what the best feel is. So I tend to sort of ask a lot of questions in that scenario, like, okay, what's the vibe you're going for? I try to get as much information about the song as I can, whether it's the vocals that help me to decide that, or whether it's just the way the rhythm is played by that guitar player. And there's a lot of things you can do with the tempo once you find it. You can, depending again on the song, you can play very much on the beat, right on top of it. And there's some techniques that you can work on to really get good at that. You can also really learn to play behind the beat, which is primarily what I think we do in Periphery, at least with the way the grooves are set up. And then you can also, in certain scenarios, play in front of the beat, which really is specific, from at least in my experience, to a certain kind of style. So where you maybe play in front of the beat is much more faster kind of grooves, or maybe even like punk music sometimes, like it's really driving and almost like pushing ahead like that. And a lot of that has to do with drummers, with their technique and how they actually will utilize their movements in relation to the hi-hat or whatever's keeping the pulse. A lot of times, to play really kind of ahead of the beat, you want to keep the movements very stiff and very, very precise and focus on the sound being really consistent. Whereas if you're playing behind the beat, you may actually want to try to create more space with your movements physically, to really carve out more of the space between the two beats that you're connecting to make the full thing. And I kind of, in clinics, we'll talk about this a lot with drummers, because they'll say, how do I develop groove or feel? And a lot of it comes down to understanding your own individual physical limitations. How a person is built physically can determine the way that they sound playing the drums specifically. And it's sort of the thing I would compare it to would be like, we all have different length of legs, and we all take either shorter or longer steps than one another. But when I walk down the street and I use my legs to make my steps, usually I don't think about the tempo at which I'm walking, but I probably walk at a continuous rhythm, and every step my feet are creating the same amount of space, because that's how my legs are built, right? So it's not like I'm purposely stepping really far or stepping really close together. It's just my legs create a natural kind of feel. So when you have a tempo that you're trying to work within, there's usually some kind of pulse, and you can use the actual physical limitations of your body to create your own sort of internal physical metronome. So things like bobbing your head or turning your head from side to side. You can't, hopefully we can't turn our head 360 around. So when you turn left, there's a stopping point. Consider that the very pole, like the polar end to one part of the beat. And then you have this side, you have the other polar end to the beat. And then there's all this space in between. And there's ways within certain tempos to move faster from one side to the other, still within the tempo, or really slow within that tempo to try to carve it out, or really just directly on the movement. So how I mentioned you would use the hi-hat specifically for sound is similar to what you would do with your body or your head movement. A lot of times the beat will be so complex, or the tempo will be so specific, that I can't maybe move my head when I'm playing the groove consistently like that to create my own metronome. So what I'll do is I'll find something else on my body that can create that, whether it's the left foot keeping time with the tempo, or it's maybe just is the way that my body moves with the way my shoulder or with my arm moves. But there's always this back and forth motion that we create that is sort of copying or mimicking what a traditional metronome would do when you click the needle and it goes back and forth and back and forth. We want to create that within ourselves. So that's sort of like some of the physics behind it, I think. If you could boil it down to how do I develop groove and how do I learn how to play ahead or behind the beat, you could actually use walking as an example. Put on a song that you're about to play, or use the song that we're going to record today and put it on and walk down the street to the tempo of the song and try to walk really, really focused, like right on the beat, where you would kind of almost want to like push your feet down to nail it every time. Kind of walk behind the beat where you're a little bit more relaxed and you're looser, and then try to walk ahead of it where you're kind of sprinting a little bit but still staying in time. And it's that sort of practice, I think, which is totally different than drumming, that can help you to decide the right feel. And for drummers, a lot of times the other members of the group are relying on us to decide how it should feel. So with that in mind, we can make those decisions a lot of times, but as I said, it's great to get as much information about the song and the part you're playing so that you know exactly how to approach each section. Because within one song, and we can even talk about this with Periphery 2 versus recording Juggernaut, within one song there might be tempo changes or feel changes, different transitions that you need to sort of ramp up or bring down. Dynamics can have a lot to do with that as well. But I think sometimes it's even as literal as having a tempo map where, off of Periphery 2, specifically the song Ragnarok, has 3 different tempo or two or three different tempo changes?
No, it has like 50 or something.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. See?
Well, specifically, yeah. During Periphery 2, we were into the idea, and we were also encouraged by the producer that we worked with to... I actually wasn't in the band, so it wasn't we. You guys, and I was there. We're encouraged to use a lot of tempo changes, just micro tempo changes of a BPM or 2, or a half, as definitely happened.
Yeah, and that was used to really exaggerate the feeling of playing behind a beat, which
I don't think necessarily there's that much point in.
Right, I don't recommend it because if anything, it's more of a hassle or challenge later to try to recreate that in a live setting, to have to even as a drummer play through a performance like that from start to finish. It's very hard to identify small little changes like that. What's better is being able to have a set tempo and then be able to move around it. I kind of describe it as like in the Matrix, it's like you can't bend the spoon, that's impossible, but instead you have to bend yourself around the spoon.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea is I don't know, at least for us.
Yeah.
On Juggernaut, we did no tempo changes within the songs.
I think there's one song with one tempo change.
Which song? Is that
Stranger Things?
Maybe towards the towards the end.
Yeah, there's a but that's like a tempo change. It's not like a micro
incremental.
Yeah, it's
right.
I think there might be one or two other. Omega, I think, has. But that's kind of the whole thing shifting into a triplet time.
Yeah, and there's space. The drums kind of come out as well before that happens. So, you can do it, but to do it kind of while you're playing, the continuity is really hard to keep up.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that every drummer necessarily is capable of doing like what you can do when you're playing to a metronome. But
I think every drummer is, as long as you practice it, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
I've been working in studios for so long with using a click in the metronome. When I first started, I was terrible at it. I had no idea what it meant to play ahead of the beat or behind the beat or on the beat. And I had producers say like, okay, try to relax more, try to hit harder here and change this dynamic. And eventually over time, after doing it, you really learn it. We perform live to a click track. So almost every single time I'm behind my drums in a professional setting, I'm using a click. So it's become second nature. And they say you need like your 10,000 hours or whatever it is. I'd like to think that by now I probably have 10,000 hours behind a click.
Yeah.
I would think, with my old age.
Absolutely.
So I would really encourage a lot of drummers, especially when they're prepping for the studio, to focus on, getting comfortable with different feels, playing with different kinds of click setups. And we can actually get into that now because we need to create the click for what we're going to track.
We're going to need him.
So the song that we're tracking, Alpha, is fairly slow in tempo overall.
165.
Right. So it's
but a lot of it's like a halftime or just backbeat.
Right. It's not. So, and this is what I wanted to talk about specifically. So, if let's say the tempo is about here, we could play this song or use this tempo a lot of different ways. We could go like boop boop bop boop 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 bop boop 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 bop, or we could go boop boop, bop boop, boop boop, bop boop, or we could even go. I mean, there's so many different variations, but within this particular song in this context, I guess you'll see when we play it. There's a lot of notes happening, especially on the guitars. The riff on top of this pulse is so I'm not a singer, but I would think of that as 16th notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a da 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 da. And I'm kind of clapping the 8th note here. So when I play this song to a click, what I want to hear is either a very accented 8th note or actually hear 16th note pulses. So da 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 da, or da do da do da do da do, something like that really keeps me in with kind of the overall I guess foundation of the pulse, representative of all the notes that are being played within the song. So I can really feel supported and not necessarily feel like I'm listening for every quarter note.
Yeah.
There's so much space in between those notes, it's really hard to kind of push and pull and stay consistent with however you want to play. So I personally like to really fill in the clicks as much as I can as far as the subdivisions of the rate goes, so that it's just every little subdivision is supported and I can hear that, and I know that the beats that I'm playing, the notes that I'm playing will fall within that sort of setting.
It takes some rhythmic ability, I think, to be able to, and just understanding of rhythm, to be able to play to a 16th note click accurately. But yeah, you're not going to be able to do it without that knowledge either. I don't know. You need to spend a lot of time like just playing to a 16th note click and really locking in with every subdivision, whether the riff actually hits every subdivision or not, and practice being able to hit like the E and the A without hitting the downbeats and things like that. And,
Sure.
Once you have that framework in place, it becomes very easy. We all play to a 16th note click live.
And everybody in the band really didn't do that prior to sort of me setting it up that way. Like Misha would always be like, "You really want a 16th note click? Are you sure?" Yeah. And I would always say, "Yeah, totally," because the analogy that I use when I was talking about the clinic was, I think of it like this: if I only, let's say I'm standing on one side of a lake and I need to get to the other side of a lake. If I only had the quarter notes, that would be representative of having 4 logs evenly placed along the lake that I have to jump from one to the next. And there's all this sort of variable space that I might fall in, or I might not land perfectly, or I may not be able to do it at the same pulse or tempo. But if I start slowly filling in with more small logs, like now I have 8 logs to represent the 8th notes, I can sort of take there's a little bit less risk of falling off. And then if I fill in all 16, then I can just kind of very comfortably walk right across. So that's the way I think of it in terms of what I hear with my click track is I like to have that whole sort of foundation there, so that I'm never really worried about falling off or moving kind of like away too much from the beat or diverting from it. And instead I can, again, push and pull within that, so that I don't have to worry about whether I'm not hitting those key notes or key tempo marks, So hopefully that makes sense for everybody. But if there are questions, obviously we can take them. But we should set this click up now.
Yep.
So
I'll let Alex take the helm.
What I'm thinking would be cool, just from a sound perspective, is to have just accents that would be, I guess, 8th note accents, kind of like you would do like a molar stroke, like dat do dat do dat do dat do dat do dat do, and we can just do that all throughout. Okay. Something that I like to do too is there's always a count in, so I try to do like either some kind of even note count, and usually it's eight counts, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Sorry, that's terrible. I'm a drummer, I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, and then that's when the cue would be. And if there's a pickup or something, you have enough space to really listen. A lot of times, working with certain producers, they would like only give me 2 beats before, and you end up wasting time because you almost miss it. You have to have enough time to hear it and then catch it, and then know how to click in. So, can we hear this one? Okay, so this is a good example of, it's almost there. So we're accenting now the first of every note. What I want to do is actually accent the first and then have one that's softer and dynamic, and then the third note will also accent. So dot do, or dot do, kind of like that. So is this set as a quarter note?
Yeah, we got a
looks like?
quarter.
So
Do
let's
you
go to
want-
the 8th note. Cool. So we're almost there. So that's still kind of only accenting the first of the 4 notes, so we want to accent every 2. Is there a way to do that?
Let's see. We go.
Yeah, so we can change the meter to 2/4 exactly.
You want
So-
more of an accent even?
Yeah,
Turn that
that'd be
up a
great to
little
have
bit.
just a little bit more of an accent.
Let's try that.
Yeah, that's great. So with that in mind, I like to hear the space between both the notes because it helps to keep me kind of where I need to be within the mix. If you have the notes all sounding the same, da 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 da, instead of da do da do da do, if you're not used to that, you can kind of maybe get lost if you don't hear the backing track. So it's good to have the reference of, the dynamic change there. Some other drummers, and even myself, if I ever have a lot of time to really work to program a click, I'll even program something that would be kind of close to like what an arpeggiator would do, which would really space out every note. So instead of being like da do da do da do, it would be like da do 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 da do 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 da do 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 da do, and really change pitch and almost dynamic up and down, which just helps to even more so carve out the space for all those logs or 16th notes or 8th notes, whatever you'd be using. So it's really helpful. But that'll be the one that we track to. So the only thing we'll have to do as we get the template set up is just in the beginning have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, dot 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 dot, and then
Okay.
it would come in. So we don't need to do that now, but we can
Great.
set that up. But just like a 8-beat count in
Okay.
just before we go. So, and that's pretty much how it goes setting up clicks. I mean, we do this for performing live. We're in the process right now of switching over our interface as far as what we use in live performance, and because of that, we have to program all new clicks and get the whole live setup. So I'm going to be doing a lot of this coming up soon with every song that we're going to be playing in our set on our next bunch of tours. So
Yep.
it's always a fun process.